her name. I am my sister. Black girls as young as 7, great grandmothers as old as 95 have been killed by the police. They have been shot to death. They have been stomped to death. They have been suffocated to death. They have been manhandled to death. They have been tasered to death. They have been killed shopping while black, having a mental disability while black, having a domestic disturbance while black. They've even been killed being homeless while black. Why don't we know these stories? Say her name.
You don't hear about us on the news. You know, you might hear about it when it first happened, and that's it. They sweep it under the rug. But we have a voice now. We're gonna break the silence and we're gonna talk about it. One thing I know, she's smiling now because I'm doing what she would want me to do.
She's not coming back. How can I live on through her? Speak. How can she live on? Speak.
We are human. We are damsels in distress. We have issues, we have problems, and just don't come out with guns in hand and shoot us.
Sometimes we don't even know, most of us don't even know we're being suppressed, you know. And those that speak out against it are the most in danger. And Corinne Gaines was one of them.
Not one crazy, disgusting law was changed, but one person. Not one slave was freed because of one voice. It takes unity. It takes people who, if they didn't go through it personally, it takes people who are willing to fight so that they don't. So that it's not your child or your daughter or your son whose name is being said. I don't want anybody to look at me as a victim. If you don't understand that we have a problem in this country, you are the victim. You're the victim.
Mic check, mic check. Welcome to West Wednesday. This is West Wednesday number 362. I'm going to turn this over to Tawanda Jones, sister of Tyrone West. Don't forget to unmute yourself, Tawanda.
Thank you, Ben. So we're at week 362, day 2,534. So for all these days and weeks, we've been fighting nonstop, and not just for my big brother Tyrone West, but unfortunately for all the victims of police brutality and misconduct. It's just real. Police terrorism is real. You know, so before we go into anything, I want to just quickly go into some housekeeping rules. Because I feel as though it's needed, because I wouldn't ever want anybody to leave a West Wednesday or view a West Wednesday and somebody's being attacked, any racial group, anything such as that nature, So I just wanted to just kind of remind folks, let's just be respectful towards each other, because at the end of the day, this is a loving space. We're not here to attack each other. We're here to attack the issues, and we do everything in love and in peace. So again, I love you guys, and thank you for tuning in, and just thank you guys. I don't know what I would do without you guys. I'm just being honest, because as we're approaching July the 18th, 2013, even though it's not 2013, it's 2020, but in 2013, my brother Tyrone West was brutally executed right here in Baltimore City. But I'm not going to dive into his story because it's painful, and I'm getting traumatized already. I'm getting choked up. But the reason why I decided to play that video of Say Her Name, because I had my three beautiful sister queens, but two of them lost their daughters, and that's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to lose any loved one, right? But when you lose a daughter, it's really traumatizing. I couldn't imagine. Like, I lost my brother, and that damn near killed me. Damn near killed my whole family. And I know how it feels to be a mother of two beautiful daughters. So I just give these warrior queens, and even my warrior queen Mariam Gray Hopkins, who's always on the battlefield, she's here to join us as well. But just to start us off and open us up real quick, I thought it would only be right if I would get my beautiful queen sister Nicole just to sing a beautiful song, so that way we can start off in love and kindness. And then once she's done, I'm gonna bring on my sister Gina Bass. So, mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. Mic check.
All right, Nicole, the floor is all yours. You can start singing, baby. We need a good one.
Okay. This is an original piece by me. It's called He Blessed Me, and goes a little something like this. Y'all gotta bear with me, because it do get to me a little bit when I get to thinking about my father-in-law, and I get to thinking about my daughter, and they died only 2 weeks apart, and it's crazy. So it goes like this. He blessed me through all the pain, and he blessed me through all the rain. When Jesus heard my story, he blessed me. I knew that he would. He blessed me. He understood. He blessed me. I knew that he would. So I'm asking, please hold my hand and bless me, and every man take my hand and walk me through, 'cause I need you. I'm feeling so blue, but he blessed me so shiny high. Plus he blessed me, and I don't know why.
That was so beautiful. You got me in tears, sis. Yasi did blush. You blushed in more ways than I can imagine. With a beautiful heart, soul, and spirit, and that beautiful warrior queen fighting spirit. So definitely don't go nowhere, because I definitely want you to share, because I couldn't imagine the type of pain you went through fighting for your father-in-law, who was Anthony Anderson, and then turned around 2 weeks later burying your daughter. So I definitely want you to share, please, queen. So yes. Right now I'm going to go to our warrior queen, Gina Bass. She's beautiful on the inside, and mostly beautiful on the outside. It matches. Like, she's beautiful, completely beautiful. Like, I'm glad we don't look like what we've been through. God is so good. So, no further ado, our beautiful warrior queen, Gina. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. Sorry, I'm late.
Mic check.
Gina, the floor is all yours, sweetie.
Gina, your microphone is muted. You have to unmute it at the bottom of the screen.
I see.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you for that reminder. I have my grandson, India's eldest baby, in the background, so he's playing. So if you all hear that, that's Evan. But I want to thank you all for inviting me to join on the panel this evening and share and talk about a few things that we're dealing with right now in this environment, highly charged environment, where the whole world is watching in this space about police terrorism, police killings of innocent Black people, specifically the Black Lives Matter slogan. But I wanted to, first of all, amplify all of the women, not in any way discounting our brothers, but I want to thank you for sharing the video, because part of that, the video, is the challenge that we're facing as mothers and sisters and family members of women who killed by police, and that is the erasure. Women are not usually first and foremost included in the conversation or even in the media of when our daughters are killed. My daughter, I am the mother of India Kager, who, I have to speak in code now because Evan is right here, but Virginia Beach Police on September 5th, 2015, tragically took her from us with my 4-month-old grandson in the backseat of the car. And here we are almost now 5 years later, and there still is no justice. Where on this journey I've had to redefine what justice would even look like. So part of that for Black women is that their names are said, say her name. What I want to share with everyone is that the slogan, say her name, it was started by, and I brought this, I want to share this. This is Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw, who started and coined the phrase, say her name, in 2014 during the uprising in Ferguson after Mike Brown, when a young woman by the name of Michelle Crusoe was killed by police who had responded to her home when she was in the middle of a medical crisis, an emotional crisis. And in a matter of minutes of responding to her home, they killed her. But no one knows the name of Michelle Crusoe. Most people can rattle off and know the names of our brothers, our fathers, our sons, our loved ones, our males who've been killed, Black men who've been killed by police, but not the women. So Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw coined that phrase, say her name. And unfortunately, since then, there have been countless other Black women killed by police, including my daughter, India Kager, and we're still fighting, even now, for amplification within the media, for even acknowledgement that Black women, I wore this shirt here, I don't know if you all can see it, Black women are killed by police too, because we can name certain ones right off the top and bless their lives. In no way is this to exclude our brothers, but it's also to ask for inclusion of the sisters who should be here, but unfortunately they were victims of police terrorism and extrajudicial killings, and we're all fighting for justice, male and female. I have a lot more to say, but I'm gonna let our panel come in because we're all in this together this evening and in the fight against police brutality and police murder.
Thank you for sharing. I love how you broke that down. Like, that definitely needs to be broke down like that. because I actually remember when the lady you were talking about started to say her name, so I'm glad you brought that up. That was
Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw.
yes.
And can I share that Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw is a professor of law in Columbia University in New York, but also UCLA. And there are so many things she's done for us who are really helping, because even as a mother, we're ignored. We suffer. We suffer because no one knows what happens to our daughters. And it feels different. So I really want us all to talk about that, because there have been instances where I could be at a rally or something, but I also feel different because I'm the mother of a woman killed. So there are some differences, and perhaps we can get into that this evening, that have that dialogue with each other tonight.
Yeah, that's really good. And to me, like, with me just thinking about that, just in a sense, like, I couldn't imagine nothing like that. But just like Malcolm X said, women are the most disrespected, neglected, and unprotected. And it's really sad that somebody needs to definitely change that narrative. So, yeah. And Ben, do anybody have any questions?
Can you tell us a little about India?
Thank you. My beautiful daughter, India Jasmine Kager, I'll tell you what happened. First of all, we all struggle with this. We hate to even refer to our children and our loved ones in past tense, but India was very soft-spoken, unlike her mama. All right, she was highly gifted in that she played 5 instruments, self-taught. India also, not to quantify it if this is going to add any more credence to her life, because she was special and unique and priceless regardless, but she was also a Navy vet, and she attended the Duke Ellington School of the Arts in Washington, D.C., where she studied visual arts. So she didn't go for her musical gift. She went for her visual art because she was also a poet and a visual artist as well. Soft-spoken, loving, a tree hugger, a very thoughtful, introspective, very empathetic, very kind, never, ever, ever wanted to be the center of attention in a room. You'd have to turn around and look to see it if she was in a room, and spoke at a very slow cadence, very deliberate cadence, and even carried herself in terms of her walk in a very deliberate. So she never rushed. She came into the world very silent, but unfortunately she left violently. She was stolen from us violently. And what happened with India was, on the weekend of September 5th, 2015, the father of India's baby, his name was Angelo Perry, had traveled to Maryland a couple of days before to meet his baby. They had a baby together. They were not in a relationship, and unbeknownst to India, and I'm going to bring this element in, his wife, they had a relationship. She conceived and she had her baby. Well, he shared with his wife, and they all talked and agreed that they were going to co-parent, and he wanted to meet the baby, Roman Kager. So he came to Maryland, and they were traveling back to Virginia Beach, where Angelo Perry's family had gathered for family reunion that weekend. Now, mind you, this is Labor Day weekend, so it was busy because Virginia Beach is a resort beachfront town, but they had assembled the entire SWAT team, based off of what they say, and we all are going to talk about this as well. The narrative was that they had gotten a tip from a confidential informant that Angelo was on his way to commit a crime. Not had committed the crime, was on his way. Now, this is the ridiculous story that the Virginia Beach police put out. And we know that the media, localized media, is also the megaphone and the mouthpiece for the police, because they get to them before we do as families. So they, unbeknownst to India and Angelo, they watched India as she went from house to house, carrying Roman's car seat, getting in and out of her car, back in, and introducing the baby to Angelo's family. We learned later that this, let me just go back for a moment. Remember I said SWAT team. So what does that tell you all? If it's a SWAT team, that is not a 911 call that was made, There was no exigent circumstances. There was no need for heightened alert, if you will, because she was in the place, her own car, driving her own car, and she was amongst Angela Perry's family members with her baby. So let's just eliminate this thing right there, because most people don't know is that they had already done this. They planned what they were going to do. This highly specific detail targeting one man. They waited until India. She went to a Shell gas station, went into the convenience store, and this came out during a wrongful death trial. There was a video showing India had gone into the Shell gas station, and she went to her left and she asked the clerk for something. The clerk pointed down an aisle. They show India walking down the aisle, and she's in that Shell convenience store for almost 5 minutes. So if the SWAT team wanted to, quote unquote, take down Angela Perry, they had that time to do that. They didn't do that. They waited until India got back in her car. Then she drove to a 7-Eleven. And as she was parking her car, the Virginia Beach Police SWAT, remember there were 16 racist men on this detail. They ran into the back of India's car, an unmarked SWAT van and a blue SUV truck. They ambushed India's vehicle while simultaneously detonating flashbang grenades. Fully aware that there was an innocent baby in the car, fully aware that India was not part of any investigation whatsoever, fully aware that they were there not to arrest because they had opportunity to do so. They could have done a traffic stop, but they had no probable cause. After they detonated those flashbang grenades, 4 of the SWAT officers jumped out of the back of the van and they ran with their fingers on the trigger to the passenger side of India's car while emptying out, the media says 30 rounds, but I learned in a wrongful death trial it was 51 rifle rounds. 51 high-powered rifle rounds into India's vehicle. They claim that they never aimed at India, but the video that they put out, and I want the world, you all to know this, they only released 1 minute, 1 second of the video. And Marion was there with me when we saw that. She came to my home. Marion actually first met Marion at India's funeral. So I will come back to our beloved sister Marion and how she's been very helpful in this movement, trying to keep it together, you all. They fired 51 rounds knowing that there was an innocent baby in the car. What they don't tell the world is that there was no arrest warrant for Angela Perry. No crime had been committed, and that the original charge, Angela Perry had served time in prison from the age of 21 until 34. And his original charge was assault on a Virginia Beach police police officer. So this was retribution. This was retaliation. They wanted Angela Perry dead, because what they also don't tell in their narrative is that they murdered Angela Perry, this extrajudicial killing, less than a year and a half of him being released on parole. They murdered him. And they didn't see India. They divorced themselves from any semblance of humanity. They saw her, don't get me wrong, they saw her, but they did not see her as deserving to live. And they were fully aware that there was an innocent woman and her baby in the backseat of the car, because no doubt this was a SWAT team, so you know they're highly trained. You know that they go over and beyond the normal training procedures for police officers. They wanted her and Angela Perry dead. They set out on this mission to kill this man. So the world needs to ask why, because what they do is cover up, and they're still doing it. It's on multi-levels. It's the police, the murderous police, but it's the Commonwealth attorneys, it's their attorneys, it's the DA, it's the judges, it's the coroners. It is layers of this that we have to fight and contend with. And in doing so and fighting for justice, because I no longer want justice, I want retribution. I want their asses behind bars. I want them to suffer. I am not one of those who wants to forgive or turn the other cheek, because we have no more cheeks to turn. We've been doing this for well over 400 years, and we're still doing it even now. And that's the reason why in Say Her Name and in the battle cry that we said, you know, no more racist police, all the calls, that all of this, 99% of the police who have murdered our loved ones they're not criminally prosecuted. They're still on the streets, and they get to go home with their families while we have to write the obituaries and bury our loved ones and then live daily with the police. We live with PTSD. People call it post-traumatic stress syndrome. We live with police terrorism, stress disorder every single day. They permanently disabled Roman. He cannot hear out of his left ear. They orphaned Roman. They did not let me know where she was, where the baby was for 3 days. They took the entire video system out of the 7-Eleven and returned it 3 days later. It goes on and on and on. And while I'm sharing this, and I'm going to have to pause for a moment because I'm about to go, and I'm breaking the tears. You know, we do this every day. But there was no way that India was going to ever get legal justice, because Colin Stolle, who is the Commonwealth Attorney for Virginia Beach, his brother's name is Ken Stolle, Stolle. And Ken Stolle is the current Virginia Beach sheriff. Now listen to this family line and this oligarchy that is entrenched down there. He is the current Virginia Beach sheriff, but he was also, Ken Stolle, the former Virginia Beach police chief. The entire system colluded and is complicit in not even acknowledging what they did to India. But they made sure that they sent me a bill to dispose of the vehicle, the very car, India's car, that they murdered her in. They made sure they sent me that bill. Family, I can go on and on. And thank you for giving me a moment to share the horrific, planned, and deliberate murder of India, because there's no way that they could even say that this was not premeditated murder. In 3 hours, not one of those 16 SWAT officers made a life-saving decision to de-escalate. Not one. They had ample opportunity to do so. So tell me, why is it that they're still with their families, collecting a salary, where I had to file bankruptcy, where I most importantly had to murder my daughter, where I had to lose my home through foreclosure. We've suffered psychological breakdowns time and time again. Time and time again. Where India's little boy Roman is permanently disabled. And Evan, her firstborn, is on the autism spectrum. And they don't have their mother. This is what they do to us. They destroy our families, and then they lie and vilify and try to sanitize their actions. For the panel, I want a show of hands. Please raise your hand if you've ever heard the police come out and admit that they were wrong in killing our loved ones. They made a mistake. Because they sure in hell said that India, they shot my daughter by accident. Bullshit. And we live every day. And our voices are not heard. Even as we sit on this panel, West Wednesday 362, 362 weeks to try to get justice for Tyrone. Breonna Taylor's murderers are not even arrested. That tells you how entrenched this system is. We don't care about the murals, yes, acknowledge that, but arrest the murderers of our loved ones. And they still won't do it. What are they waiting for us? To go and shoot them? Is that what it's going to take? What does it take? What does it take?
sis. Like I'm lost for words. Like that was a true execution plan. Like you gave every detail, and this is so sad. Like how they get away with just executing our loved ones and nothing and covering up. You mind like everything you said about your daughter case fitted into my brother's case with this special team of unmarked, unarmed. You know, my brother was unarmed, but yet they send these armed, unmarked men and women in cars. You know, a special team. They was the gun trace task force team, and we're like, why would the gun trace task force team be pulling my brother over for a traffic stop? And they murdered him, and they cover up like you said. It ain't even. It don't stop there. Stop with the dirty DA's office, the medical examiner. They hit my brother's body for 5 days. I had no clue they hit your daughter for 3 days. This is what they do. That's why it's very important that we put all this together, and it's very even more important that we go as a collective team and demand that they open up our loved one cases, because this is per D, straight up murder, terrorism at its worst. Like we get killed more than people do in wars. So you like open the whole channel of everything, and I'm just so sorry. Like words, I can't even say anything. Cause what can I say that can comfort you with all the trauma and pain that you go through, and you still beautiful on the inside and out? I don't have it. I don't know what to say. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah. Do you have one of Gina's poems you could read? I mean, India. Excuse me. One of India's poems.
So here's something else I want to share with you. No, not right now. And again, I'm trying to really keep it myself grounded. But Tawana just said something, and I know Marion can chime in on this. What happens to us after our loved ones are murdered is that the shock of death alone leaves you got mental fog. You've got the tremendous weight of oppressive guilt and guilt. Are you gonna grief? We're struggling with even how to process what we're dealing with. That you can be anywhere, in your car, in your home, you know, at a party. In Gary's case, you know, fielding his friends. You could be anywhere as a black male or female in United States. Not just United States, but globally, but we're going to focus on the United States. And you, no matter what, fit the description of the very next police victim. No matter who you are. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic, where you are on that spectrum. It doesn't matter if you're male, female. It doesn't matter if you're a child or a baby. They did this. I want you all to grasp the gravity of this. They did this knowing that there was an innocent woman in the car and her baby. And I do apologize for the background noise. Let me just, am I coming through a little clearer now?
You're fine, sis. You don't have to apologize for anything.
But here's the issue we're dealing with, and I really want on this West Wednesday for us to open up this dialogue and this talk, because even in the midst of fighting for our loved ones, we still have factions out there that want to divert the focus. The focus right now, the battle cry, yes, is Black Lives Matter. There had to be say her name, just get black women included in that. Not that we even want to. You best believe none of us want to be sitting here for the topic that we're discussing right now. But this is what we are contending with day to day. You cannot legislate morality. You cannot legislate away racism and prejudice. They've tried that. Affirmative action just to be able to get a freaking job, redlining just to be able to get a place to live. And we're still fighting for our rightful place on this soil in America. And the problem is nothing has, you know, the platitudes that they offer. And even in just band-aids, going to Annapolis, fighting, protesting. the infighting where we're crying for Black Lives Matter because they have always treated us like chattel, like property. We know that that's the beginning of how police started to begin with. The patty rollers, which later was the patrollers. The infiltration of the KKK in every level and strata of every profession in the United States of these America. We know that. And then you have those who want to oppose, well, what about black on black crime? Where's the outrage for that? I'm not saying that there is no outrage, but we're speaking specifically about state-sanctioned murder of loved ones by police when 99% of those officers, due to qualified immunity and other laws that are put in place to protect them, that there's no justice ever in the legal courts. I want to hear, Marion, what do you all have to say? We shouldn't even have to have that retort. Well, what about black on black crime? It's not the same thing. Yes, lives have been taken. That's the common denominator. But it's the method whereby the life has been stolen. That's distinctly different. Different. And it's infuriating.
It really is, sis. And that's how they play that divide and conquer game. And it makes me so mad because I just recently did a speak out about the exact same thing. We know that all races kill people. Asians kill Asians. They don't call that Asian or Asian crime. And then they know that at the end of the day, these officers don't get no damn time. Like, we know who they are. We know what they did. But yet, they get to torment. That's the big difference that people, you can't even compare the two. You cannot. You cannot. It's unfortunate it happens and it's hurtful and all that. I'm not taking away from none of that. But at the end of the day, you can never compare the two. When we looking at these killers, for one, they're gonna talk about this black on black food. Let's talk about blue on black. But meanwhile, when somebody in the community kills somebody and somebody goes on that stand and they point him out and say, little Joe killed little black, you probably will never see him again. Never, ever. They throw the book, beyond the book, all that, right? But when an officer kills, we have to fight for everything, like, just to get answers. And everybody's in it covering up. That's the big difference. That's the heartbreaking part. We get to get tormented. We get to, like, for instance, with me, with West Wednesday, I get to see Ruiz and Chapman, the first two killer cops that killed my brother, ride past me, do cutthroat gestures, threaten me, all this stuff, and nothing gets done. I can tell the commission they don't give a damn. Nothing gets done. Like, it's ridiculous. So I'm definitely feeling you. Definitely.
Let me, if I could just chime in for a second. I mean, Miss Bess, I'm terribly sorry for your loss. I believe I met you a few years ago in Maryland.
Yeah, you've been. Thank you.
And
I'm sorry too. Very sorry. All the time.
Some of the things that people need to understand that they may not understand about your daughter's situation was she was never the focus of a police investigation.
Never.
She happened to be the driver of a vehicle. The police officers, whatever their investigation was at that time, if they were looking for Mr. Perry and that they knew that he, was sought for whatever reason in the background, they chose to make the stop where they chose to make the stop at. They didn't have to make the stop at that 7-Eleven. They could have waited for your daughter and Mr. Perry to separate someplace. They could have waited hours. It didn't have to go down at that moment.
Yes.
And for the police to have the knowledge that they had prior to making the stop, and then to, basically, take your daughter's life in the process of arresting Mr. Perry is what is shocking, because firing 30 rounds into a vehicle with your daughter, 51 rounds into a vehicle with your daughter, with a child, and at the same time, all of that happened within the span of 15 seconds. It's very important for people.
I apologize. It was 4 seconds. Yes.
4 seconds, even worse. It paints the picture of the negligence caused by the police to act at that moment in time.
Yes.
You know, and it's important for everyone to understand that. I mean, I have cases that, you know, around the country, where it's important for everyone to realize that many people perish within seconds. Things that didn't have to happen, escalation that did not have to happen, police have all the time because they're the people who pick and choose how they want to go and stop a vehicle or stop an individual, and based on the information that they have, they get to choose when they're going to do that. It's not like Mr. Perry was engaged in something, or they saw something that said, oh wow, someone's life is in jeopardy, we have to go right now. And I think it's very important for people to understand that. I mean, and especially the police officers who are monitoring right now, to understand you get a chance to decide on how, when, where you're going to conduct the stop. And if you have the background information, when you get to choose where you're going to conduct that stop, you have to be aware of all of the things, all the people that are around you that might become harmed by you picking and choosing to make that stop at that moment in time. I think that's very important for your story with your daughter, and I'm terribly sorry for your loss.
And thank you. And what I want to add to that is, remember the narrative that the police put out of all of our loved ones. They're always destructive narratives. They're always designed to get the public as a whole to side with them, and they're always designed to, as an attempt to sanitize their actions.
Well, there's a relationship that it's important that everyone understands, that the municipality, the city that hires the police officers, there's a relationship there that there's a conflict of interest right up from the start. The Internal Affairs Division officers work with the police officers that are in the police division. The lawyers that work for the city have to go and protect the city coffers. Everyone becomes part of the mechanism of trying to, in many instances, cover up and lie and present, the police officers in the best possible light, which, of course, we now see more and more videos that come out. For instance, Mr. George Floyd's death. Officers lynched a man on a public street, and then those officers went back to a police station, told everybody a lie, wrote up a report that was a lie. And if it wasn't for the video coming out from innocent bystanders hours later being posted for everyone to see, the lie would have been the narrative that everybody ran with. So it's very important for everybody to understand, when the victims' families talk about their negative experiences, and they're talking about the deeply entrenched, the cultural problems, the systemic problems within these agencies, they're not talking because of the pain that they're feeling. They're talking from the experience that they've had that's left a very bad taste in their mouth, and they're trying to go on an alarm and alert everybody else to the same problem. That's all I wanted to add to it. I'm sorry.
No apology, and thank you. It exacerbates an already horrible life situation that we're left with.
Well, it exasperates it because you're left with defending the character of your loved one that's no longer here to defend themselves, and you have to go and deal with a system that has already jumped the ball by going out and offering a story to go and protect people that should have been held accountable for their actions.
Exactly, and I wanted everyone to know this. What they did to India, what people aren't aware of is that we are a law enforcement family. And I don't say that with pride either. Her father and her grandfather are both retired DC police officers. I myself am a former Tacoma Park Police, Maryland dispatcher. Many years. My son was doing law enforcement for a season, and he just couldn't any longer because he said it bothered him when he would put on the belt with his gun and everything, knowing that the last sounds that his sister heard were rifle rounds, and it bothered him. My other brother-in-law is currently one Prince George's County Police. Other cousin I have is a Maryland State Trooper. So we're coming from this from both sides, where the dichotomy is that I know the inside, and again, having been married to India's father as a DC police officer, and now the mother of an innocent black woman, who was killed, murdered by police. So how do we begin as loved ones to even excavate? You know, Tawanda's been out there 362 weeks.
Well, the only thing that I can think, the only thing I can think of is, you know, when we talk about, you know, the awareness campaign that every family member becomes embroiled in to go and express, you know, the pain, the fact that there has not been justice served. That's the reason why we talk about defunding the police department. Because if you have something that is rotten from the ground up, if it's built on a poor foundation, if we talk about the history of law enforcement in this country going all the way back to slave patrols, we have a system in place that unfortunately is working as it was always designed. And unfortunately, in this particular case, in many police departments, defunding them and starting over is important. And it's an important conversation that we have to have in this country.
But the problem is they're not having it with the people who are directly impacted. They're still ignoring us.
They may be ignoring us, but at the same time, the voices of the people who are the taxpayers who actually support all of these institutions, you know, people going out, having protests in the street, organizing, having, you know, rallies to go and make sure that they make other people aware of the problem. I think at this point there are many people who now realize that, especially the police, now that there's more talk about defunding police, now that there's, you know, in New York City just recently there's a bill on the table to have police officers pay for their own liability insurance.
Yep.
You know, all of these things are coming forward now, based on, you know, India's case, Mr. George Floyd's case, all of these cases. You know, when we go back throughout, you know, recent and past history, all these cases and all of these civil disorders that people go out into the street and march about are all predicated on police actions against mostly minority citizens. If the police officers who committed these type of acts did not commit these acts, there wouldn't be people out in the streets protesting. So the police who serve the communities, they protect and serve the communities, need to realize that their checks rely on the members of the community paying taxes. And if the service that you're providing is not a good service, people want to fire you. That's what it comes down to. So when people talk about defunding the police and bringing in other things that might be able to help people out, they're talking about the fact that the police have failed their job in terms of protecting and serving everybody equally. If white people in this country had received the same service that black people in this country have been receiving, this would have been settled a long time ago. And that is the conversation that every white person that's out there listening needs to understand. Officer friendly in your neighborhood, the person that, you know, wears the community police cap and does everything right and has all the de-escalation skill set, is not officer friendly most of the time in the black neighborhood. That officer becomes the warrior cop that wants to go and put a knee on someone's neck. That officer becomes the officer that wants to go out and commit a chokehold on Mr. Eric Gardner to suffocate him. That officer is the same officer that stopped Sandra Bland in Texas and over a cigarette, telling her to put out a cigarette, ends up finding a way to lynch her. These are the types of things that happen in the black community that do not happen in the white community. And if they happened in white spaces, this conversation would be quite different in this country.
And the fact that it doesn't, one thing that needs to be also amplified, or the glaring contrast, you don't hear people out there protesting against the fire department. And they're doing a dangerous job as well. You don't hear people out here, I mean, literally, the fire department. You don't hear that. Defund the fire department. No. So if
take that a step further. Mm-hmm. With all of the college campuses in America, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday is a high drug activity period on college campuses throughout America. We don't have, for low-level possessionary user offenses on college campuses, we don't have college campuses being raided by SWAT teams. We don't have people who have mental health disorders on campuses being raided by SWAT teams. There are family members, the Kenneth Chamberlain family, for instance, father that was a Marine, a veteran of this country, a former postal service worker. He, for the better part of an hour, pled with police officers that they didn't have to go and barge into his home, that he was okay, that he only accidentally rolled over on his 911 pendant to alert, 911 that he might have had, some sort of medical alert problem. He told them through the door, a locked door, he was fine. But for a better part of an hour before police knocked down his door, went into his home, and shot him in his kitchen. If these type of stories happen to white people in white spaces in this country, we would have a much different conversation. It's important for all the it's really important for all the white allies to understand the pain that people are feeling, the legitimate pain that people are feeling is because the type of policing that is conducted in America is different based on color. Period.
Period. Well, I want to share this with everyone. One thing real quick. You said that if this happened in white communities, well, let's just trigger our memories for a moment. There was a white woman killed by police. Her name was Justine Diamond. But the glaring, once again, contradiction here is that the officer who killed her was black. He was Somali, actually. He's behind bars. But it did happen. And they're still standing about that.
There are other cases. There are other cases, officers down in, I believe, Louisiana that chased after a car, and the man was driving with his two sons in the car. The officers fired into the truck, killing the father, and they were charged and arrested as well. We could go on and on and on about the glaring differences. But across the spectrum of the criminal justice system, if we think about history, is something that we can't forget. When we're talking about the present moment, this present moment in time, and we're looking at the fact that even as simple as in the state of Missouri, where two people armed to the teeth with an AR-15 and a handgun to go out and point those weapons at peaceful protesters, and here we are, more than a week later, and still nobody's been arrested and charged with assault for pointing weapons at, unarmed citizens walking down the street. That again shows, at least me as a reasonable person, that we have a lot of work to do in this country.
Amen. Mr. King, can you introduce yourself just so people can know who you are real quick? That's what I was just trying to say. Because they're probably like, who is this man shedding all this great light? Could you just give us that word?
Certainly. I'm Ken Williams. I'm a use of force police practices expert. I'm a former law enforcement officer, homicide detective, retired. I've been around the country looking at cases from Texas to Florida to California to Maryland. Hired, sometimes by plaintiff's family, sometimes by defense, sometimes by Commonwealths to review cases and with respect to police practices and use of force. So I get a chance to go and see a lot of things that people don't get a chance to see. The confidential paperwork that's stamped with the red confidential stamp on the paperwork. I get a chance to read through, hundreds of thousands of documents that have been collected by police agencies. So, when I think about what I'm thinking about, at least, I'm basing it not just on my experiences of being out in the field. I'm thinking about, all of the collective experiences that I've had. And I see the problem. I see the problem, from the time that I was a cop in the streets where I blew the whistle on a police officer that wrongfully arrested a black gentleman, and I had to go and, testify against that officer. I had to arrest officers committing criminal acts against citizens. So, I have, an experience, but as a black man, I'm very, very upset by what I'm seeing in law enforcement. And I would hope that any other good citizen out there that's looking at this and following it and is reasonable can be upset as well. We got to fix this, because what Ms. Best said earlier is something that we all have to go and not gloss over, because Ms. Best, probably about 15 minutes ago, said something very, very interesting. She said, what will happen if citizens, good citizens, start to say, you know what, I got to take self-defense in my own hands, because I might not get my day in court. If the officer is about to go and kill me, and I have to get my day in court, that means I'm going to have to react to the officer trying to kill me. And that can start to become a reality in this country that we should really, really be concerned about.
I mean, if we look at the statistics on how disproportionately represented black people are in the criminal justice system, then getting your day in court is got the odds stacked against you anyway. So
it may, but the problem, what I'm saying here is that if a person feels as though I'm not going to even get my day in court,
right,
that means that in their mindset, based on their perception at that immediate moment in time, just like the officer has a perception based on threat and immediate threat and fear and all that stuff, the citizen has the same perception. If that citizen has the same perception that they fear imminent death, do they just, do they act like Mr. Eric Gardner and say, I can't breathe? Or do they at some point in time ball up a fist and start trying to figure out how they can keep on breathing?
But the difference is, we know that if that begins to happen, that they're going to be treated totally different than that of a law enforcement officer. That's true. The reality of it all.
That's very true. But all I'm trying to express is, at some point in time, these citizens that are great citizens, for instance, in Mr. George Floyd's situation, they stood out there for 8 minutes and 46 seconds pleading with people not to kill a man, armed with a cell phone. At some point in time, we're going to transition from people having armed with cell phones to arming themselves and doing other things. And that is a conversation that America doesn't seem prepared for. But it's coming.
It's coming.
It's not coming. It's already happening. I mean, I'm sure many of you have seen the videos that have been shown in Georgia took place actually in Georgia over the weekend, where they went into where the KKK actually started, and they were armed and preparing, because I mean, we're dealing with an administration that is inciting racism and inciting what may become a race war.
Be very, very careful. Let's hold on a second. Let's just back that up for a second. I want to be very careful here, because just because a black group of folks who are legally armed decide to go and bear arms, just like any other white group out there decides to bear arms, I don't want to paint the black folks as automatically dangerous, because that's what a lot of the stereotypes try to do.
And that's not what I'm saying. So I hope
I
know,
know,
from what I was sharing.
No, sister. I'm trying to speak. I'm speaking above us for the other audience that's out there. I don't want, especially me as a black man, where I have a gun. I don't need anybody thinking that because I have a gun that I'm armed and dangerous. I don't want to even take, I don't want to go and I talk with people all the time, and that is a narrative that some people will try to float out there. We've seen it in history books, where the KKK will show up with a hood, a gun, and a torch, but somehow they're guarded by the police, and they're out there, representing their First Amendment rights to go out there and speak, and they're being guarded by the police. If someone's not committing a crime and they happen to be armed with a weapon,
but isn't that already a problem?
Say it again.
But don't we live with that already? You said that you want to dissuade that perception. But isn't that what we're living with already? Isn't that what they always claimed, that this black man had a gun, or they feared for their lives? We're already in that environment. And thus, they're killing us when they do the drop guns. We know that the police are planting guns on our black brothers. We know this. And we know that we live with that. You yourself can get on an elevator right now. The white woman's in there. She's going to clutch your purse. Because that perception is already out there that black men are dangerous.
Well,
and for black women to be killed.
That's the reason why I think it's important. Part of what I do is to make sure that I spend some of my time having conversations, and I also share part of what my own personal life is like on social media to go and try to knock down some of those stereotypes. I'm a family man. I've been married for 31 years. I got 3 beautiful children. 2 of my older children have already graduated college. And all of these are things that a lot of white folks out there, they have in their minds that, black people come from a certain condition, and that we are stuck in that condition. And it's important, I think, that each and every one of us shares our own individual experiences to go and knock down those stereotypes. And that's the reason why, you know, making sure that we're not in an echo chamber. White folks are on the line with us, black folks are on the line with white folks. If we have echo chambers where we're only listening to each other, that creates a problem because we don't try to go and, at that point, take down these stereotypes. So I applaud all the white folks that are on the line. I do.
But again, I mean, based on what you just shared, we have to share that. A white person, they don't have to share that. So, you know, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and that's why we're like defending our. I find myself feeling like we have to defend our loved ones that were murdered, right?
I agree. I agree with you. I agree.
They have to be model citizens. They have to be 100% pure, like the young gentleman Elijah McClain. How sweet he was. So why do we have to quantify it? We're talking about lives that were rightfully we have a right to live. So if there's the degree after our names or a certain number of dollar signs, does that somehow makes us less?
No, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's I forget the person's name that's out there, but they said that you know, this perception that we try to place people in as far as boxes. The person could be a bank robber, but be a great father. The two may not seem like they align, but they do align if that's the person's reality. You know what I mean? With respect to black people, America has always portrayed black people since 1619 as their perception of us. I can't go into a Thanksgiving dinner with all of my white allies and have a discussion with them at the table. But if maybe they were part of a conversation like this, and now all of a sudden they come across that family member or friend or associate that has a different point of view, maybe instead of them remaining silent, maybe they pull that person to the side and challenge their point of view. They may not be able to go and change it, but maybe they at least challenge it. Because that is the problem with many of these situations, is that white folks, you know, they're part of the conversation, they look at it. I don't want people going out there who are white and they're marching for Black Lives Matter to get a t-shirt and have a picture that, you know, if they're accused later on of being a racist, they can say, well, here goes me back in 2020 when I was, you know, marching with Black Lives Matter. That doesn't help the situation at all, because if that's all you did and you didn't remain silent at your job when you knew that somebody was being discriminated against, if you remained silent because someone was a victim of police abuse, if you remain silent, you work at a hospital and you know that the hospital care is, you know, poor for black folks but exemplary for white folks. If you work in a housing authority and you know that black and brown folks are being rejected from becoming tenants of that housing authority, but white folks have an open door policy. All these things are the things that, you know, we need everybody to kind of like look at and monitor for.
Well, thank you, Ken, for sharing that. I'd like to bring my sister Miriam on now next to share about, you know, whatever you want to share and about your son, Gary Hopkins, as well. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I think some of the things that have already been said has resonated with me. And you know, some of the key words was like execution, serve and protect. That's what law enforcement is supposed to do. We're dealing with a racist justice system, so all those things resonate with me. And just want to talk a little bit about Gary, because as mentioned, Gina mentioned, we find ourselves having to humanize our loved ones because they are dehumanized, because that first narrative comes from law enforcement. And I know, and I heard the brother speak, and he, you know, talking about sharing his, you know, who he is and taking that opportunity. But at the time of the death of our loved ones, the murders of our loved ones, they don't know anything about them at all. But yet still we have to come back because that narrative gets out. If they find something, and in my case, you know, they weren't able to find anything about my son, so there wasn't that negative narrative. But this is much greater, much bigger than Gary. Gary was silenced over 20 years ago, November 27th, 1999. I heard the sister say that she lost her father-in-law and she lost a daughter within 2 weeks. I went through that same thing. You know, my son and my husband are passed away 16 days apart. So just to talk a little bit about Gary, because I like to humanize him, because Gary had 19 years of life, and he had that one tragic night of his death. Gary Hopkins Jr. was murdered at the age of 19. Gary was a full-time college student. Gary was a very, very loving person, human being. He was a loving child. He was the youngest of 4 children. And Gary loved to write. He was a poet. He was a writer. He was a rapper. He had a beautiful, beautiful smile, was always smiling. He loved to dance. He was a protector of his sisters who were older, but he protected them. He was a mentor to his peer group. He was a leader, and Gary had a lot of great qualities. He loved snickerdoodle cookies. I mean, he was in love with the supermodel. Gosh, her name just escaped me. Has the model, the one who has the runway model show. Tyra Banks. I'm sorry, had a brain freeze there. He loved Tyra Banks. His whole entire room was filled with Tyra Banks. So on the night that Gary was murdered, which was again November 27, 1999, Gary attended a dance at a local fire station. Just that morning, Gary came into my bedroom and he laid beside me. And we had lost his dad just 16 days earlier to a very short stint with terminal bone cancer. And Gary laid there beside me that morning, and he talked about his dad, how much he loved his dad, how difficult this was for him. And he mentioned to me, he said, Mom, he said, you know, he worked a little part-time job, and he said his supervisor recognized he was struggling with the death of his father, and invited him to attend this dance at the local fire station that was just minutes from our home. And he says, Mom, he says, I'm going to go tonight. And he even invited me, and of course I wasn't going to go. But he said, I'm going to invite some of my closest friends and some of my cousins to attend this dance. So, you know, Gary was killed while, you know, being black, attending a dance at a local fire station, along with all these other things that we hear: walking while black, driving my car while black, smoking a cigarette while black. I'm in the car with someone who's suspected of a crime, you know, all of that. But basically it was the color of Gary's skin. So Gary attended this dance with his friends that night, and he was dressed in all of his dad's clothes that night. And he says, Mom, I'm going to wear my dad's clothes, which he did. He went to the dance that night at the fire station, and one of his friends got into a verbal altercation with another gentleman at the party over a girl. Now here we are talking about teenage children at this dance. There were adults there, but the argument was between some teenagers, which they do. And Gary, as I mentioned, Gary was a mentor to his peer group. So that night, Gary broke up the argument between his friend and another gentleman that was at the party. At the end of the dance, Gary was being himself, leading the group, going to make sure everybody was safe, everybody was into their respective cars. Gary was a passenger. He didn't drive. He was a passenger in the very first car. Gary slides from the back seat of the car, and he sits on the windowsill. I think I mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention, Gary was always, you know, a jokester, cracking jokes, you know, keeping people laughing. He slid from out the back seat of that car and sat on the windowsill of that car because he wanted to make sure that everybody that was in the 2 cars behind him were still put in those cars. So he sat there, and as he was looking back, a police officer comes and he blocks them from exiting the fire station. There were 2 exits in that fire station. There was an exit on the left and there was an exit on the right. They were on the left-hand side. This officer who was black, Officer Devin White, gets out of his patrol car with his gun already drawn. So he's ready for some action. He gets out of that patrol car with his gun drawn. He comes up to Gary, who's still sitting on the windowsill, looking back at the other cars, making sure they were still put. He puts the gun to Gary's head, and it was cold. It was winter, November 27th in Maryland. People who know Maryland know it's really cold at that time of the year. And he puts it to Gary's head, and he pulls him off the car by the collar of his shirt. And he spins Gary around, and Gary's moving about, and I'm thinking he's trying to get his balance. And they alleged that he reached for the officer's gun. Another officer came who was moonlighting that night. Officer Brian Catlett makes one fatal gunshot wound to Gary's chest, center mass, killing him. And so that day was the day that all of my work towards social justice started. I mean, it was very difficult for me, but I knew from that point forward that I would need to get involved because I was going to make certain that my son's death was not in vain and that I could potentially save someone else's life. The justice system is corrupt. We know that. Here we are 20 years later, 21,000 plus people murdered since Gary's death in 1999 have been murdered, with 1% or less police officers any justice or any accountability for officers. 21,000 plus. Most of those people were unarmed. They're dealing with mental illnesses. But you hear the same stories. 20 years later, I thought he had a gun. I feared for my life. Those same things are still happening, so there's no justice. So it is not surprising to me that here we are with George Floyd with a knee on his neck for over 8 minutes, that there is outrage. I was outraged when I saw it. I reluctantly watched that video. Reluctantly. It brought me back to Gwen Carr, Eric Garner's mother. I can't breathe. Here we are again. What is it, 7 years later? Or I'm not sure, I don't remember. I'm very close with Gwen, but I can't remember dates right now. But here we are, the same thing. Nothing has changed. I go back to Gary's night, and I'm kind of jumping around just to share the story. But there was no weapon. There was no alcohol. There was no drugs. There was no reason for Gary to die that night when he was a peacemaker. And we talked about the corruption in the judicial system. That particular DA at the time, Jack Johnson, heard statements from all of the witnesses, and again, our corrupt system, they take statements from the witnesses that very day. The officer has 10 days before he can even be questioned. He's given the statements from the witnesses so that he, in my opinion, can develop his story around witness statements. There's something wrong with that picture. And then you get into the court, into the system. They indict the police officer who did the fatal shooting, yet you didn't indict the officer that precipitated the event, who was under investigation for numerous excessive force cases. He's not indicted. You're dealing with the police unions across this nation that are very powerful, organized crime, where they are paying for paying for these officers and their legal cost to get off with impunity. The officers lied under oath. I was told that they would charge them with perjury. That never happened. The officer that was charged, his legal fees were paid again by the FOP, by the police union. We sat in that trial for 7 full days under a judge trial. He chose the night before not to go jury. He went with a judge. That's his right. For a judge to sleep most of the trial, to tell us on the final day of closing arguments, I've heard enough, I'll be back with my verdict after lunch, and acquitted the officer on all charges. We talk about execution. I've learned through the trial that these same 2 officers, both that were moonlighting, both of them were off duty that day. The one officer that precipitated the event was moonlighting at a local Red Lobster restaurant. This other officer who did the fatal shooting was moonlighting at the dance where my son attended. They were partners, and my son was scheduled to testify against these 2 officers, which you don't hear about that, scheduled to testify against these two officers because he himself had witnessed these officers using excessive force against someone in the community. But it was not allowed in trial because what the officer said, I didn't recognize him until after he was killed. And then they didn't bring up the part about video. They didn't have videotapes back then, but there was audio tapes with officers laughing because they missed the party. He was already murdered. We missed the party. But that's the culture that you're dealing with in this country. It's not just Gary's case. It's the cases that are across this country that you're dealing with the mentality and a culture that is broken. So when we talk about defunding police officers, revamping, dismantle, let's start over, it's needed because it is broken from A to Z. It's broken.
Right.
We are funding police departments. We are militarizing police departments across this country. For what? Put that money where there are disparities in housing,
yes,
in education. We're paying for a resource officer to build a school to prison pipeline with our youth. So there is just corruption all the way through this whole judicial system. And yes, people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they're in the streets because we are demanding, even with our white allies, who are privileged, they're standing beside us to say, we now see what you all have experienced and seen for over 400 years.
Yes.
The time is now. Anyone who doesn't step up and get on board, I heard you say silence. Silence is consent to the status quo.
Yes, it is.
The blood of our children, of our brothers, of our sisters, uncles, cousins, whatever the relation, is on the hands of anybody listening to my voice today that doesn't step up and come forward and do what is right to change the system that is continuing to kill at a disproportionate number people of color. The time is now. My son's last college essay that he wrote was "It Takes a Village." It is time for this village of all races, creed, colors, age to come together to say, we have had enough. It is now time for change.
Amen.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
For that. And Gene, I want to get back to you real quick, and then I'm going to backtrack to Miriam. How can we help support you in any way? Can you give us any type of information, any petitions, any Cash App information, any way that we can support you? Please utilize us. How can we support you, my queen?
Thank you for asking that. And again, I'm just transfixed hearing Marion, because let me just, before I answer that real quick, I just want to just touch on Marion for a moment. You all have just heard the words of a mother who is about the fight. Because the very first time I met Marion, she took time out, and she came to my baby's funeral. And that meant so much to me as a mother, even though I was really kind of certainly in the blurry fog. But it does mean so much. So I have worked on what I forgot to share with you all, and again, Marion mentioned the corruption, is that I learned recently when requesting the records for my daughter that the attorney who fought India's case, who litigated, because that's a whole other issue that we deal with, and the attorney who defended the 4 officers, the 16 didn't go to trial, they all should be, they have this letter. They made an agreement to destroy all confidential information pertinent to my baby's case. So with that said, you have a whole nother, I want her case reopened. So here's what's gonna be happening here. In terms of support and things of that nature, I would like folks to donate to the Say Her Name campaign. And there is a website, because I don't have a specific organization or anything set up, but it is a Say Her Name. Go to www.aap as in Paul, F as in Frank.org. And I'll repeat that, www.aap as in Paul, F.org, and that stands for the African American Policy Forum, which was founded by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw. And on there is a link that says Say Her Name campaign. and read the stories of the women. Read the story of my daughter. There's so many women that could be named. There's Kayla Moore, Rakia Boyd. I mean, there's so very many that read what the work she's doing. Because what folks don't realize, and I've just noticed, and I'm just making a comparison, is that as Marion spoke and as I spoke tonight, everybody else is kind of silent because this is very uncomfortable. It hurts. It makes you wonder,
Absolutely.
do we live in a world, and that what people have said, this is not America. This is America. And we're not better than this. Because as a whole, what Marion just shared about Gary hanging out with his friends, being the peacemaker, and he's approached by 2 uniformed mercenaries, and his life is snuffed out. She takes it upon herself to come comfort me as a grieving mother. And when you're in that state, I'm telling you all, we're forced into a state of forced bipolarism. We deal with depression off the spectrum. We deal with every police vehicle you see, we're triggered. For me, every 7-Eleven I see, I'm triggered. And because geographically, they're everywhere, what can you do? This is America. And there are 2 words that I'm going to hinge this upon. White supremacy. And I have to say that because it's very uncomfortable to think, wow, other people, someone said this to me the other day, I really can't imagine what you go through. That's the problem. These conversations need to be had across the table. You need to imagine. You really need to stop and think, what would I do if my son or daughter were killed by a police officer? What would I do if I were black? Black. And everywhere I went, there's a what's it called, you all? A target on my forehead, on my back. What would I do? Really? So this is, to say her name, and again, I keep saying that because I funnel to say her name because they give us a safe space to talk. They give us a safe space. When you're around other mothers and loved ones and siblings, Tawanda, who are fighting, you don't really have to explain how you feel because we already know.
Absolutely.
We have to explain to others who don't know and others who really don't want to know. But that's the one thing people think about. Oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not in your shoes. They say it secretly within themselves because it's uncomfortable enough to talk about death. You're walking on eggshells. We are all faced with our own mortality. But the violent way in which our loved ones were stolen from us, the way that we have to now, India has 2 boys. Evan, 4 years old, I'm immersed in grief. This little baby realizes mommy is gone. The only really comfort he gets is by looking at me because she looks a lot like me. But he knows mommy is gone. And even on the autism spectrum, he knew something was wrong. And I'm telling you all this, our children live with intergenerational trauma. And it's irrevocable. And it's completely avoidable. This is avoidable. So I really want to know, why do we need police anyway? Why are they policing black communities? Why are they policing the areas they live in? I mean, what the excuse me, you guys, I do curse, excuse my Swahili, but I'm like, why are they doing this? And then why do they have layers of protection built in anyway? They need to stay out of black communities because all they're there is to instigate. Gary, that officer knew what he was doing.
Absolutely.
Please, I'm gonna stop. www.aapf.org. Click on Say Her Name. Please, please give. Please read. We do need help because the other problem we're faced with too is a type of rape culture. And let me explain what I mean. Everyone were killed by the patriarchy, and I'm going to use that, and the misogyny, the racism, the hatred, that they blame our loved ones for getting themselves killed.
Right.
That it was Gary, it was Tyrone West's fault for getting himself killed. Wrong place, wrong time, doing the wrong thing, hanging with the wrong people. When our loved ones have a right to be where they are.
Absolutely. Speak on it.
Blaming, they shift it, or they take the attention off of themselves, the murderous actions that they have done, and they blame our loved ones for getting themselves killed.
They must be crazy. They must be crazy. They must be crazy.
Yes.
I agree with you. I
Yes.
agree with you. I
So
agree
you
with you.
use our rage to propel us forward. And never will you hear the forgiveness. I'm sorry. No,
Come
I
on.
want them to
Never.
hurt the same way we hurt.
Right.
I want their
Right.
mothers to hurt the same way we hurt. I want them to feel the
Come
same
on.
way
Come
we
on.
feel and feel unprotected and feel vulnerable. I want that because maybe if they felt the same way and went through the same thing
do
that we,
it. Right.
there would be real change because nothing
Absolutely.
would change.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely, Gina. Absolutely.
Amen.
I wanted to just speak on a couple of things that how people can help, and I think Gina touched on it a little bit already when she talked. White people need to have the uncomfortable conversations. We're uncomfortable every time we leave our house every single day. And so people that are privileged need to have the uncomfortable conversations. You know, that's where it all starts, talking about it. But sitting silent and, you know, nodding your head, yes, gets us absolutely nowhere. We wake up every morning, and I know people think that we're angry. We're angry black women. This is some pain I don't wish on anybody. This is a sorority and fraternities I wouldn't wish on anyone. And I'm 20 plus years in, and I hurt every single day I wake up. Every day.
Yes.
Some of the things that you all could do, as you hear about qualified immunity, we want them to get rid of qualified immunity.
Absolutely.
Police officers should face the same charges and the same issues and everything as anybody else. We want people to. Here in Maryland, there's a coalition, and it's called. Let me give you the acronym first. It's MCJPA. It's the Maryland Coalition for Justice and Police Accountability. We're starting on five issues, but there's a host of things that we need to do to reform law enforcement. But we find that over these last 20 years, it's been very difficult. When we go to them and to the legislators with a host of things, they want to water it down and, you know, give us, you know, well, we'll give you this if we can take this out, give you this. But there are five major areas that we're focusing on, and I want people to get connected. And I need you to get with your legislators and say, we are not asking, but we are demanding these specific changes, along with others, but these 5 changes. And I'm going to very briefly tell you what they are. One of them is just to allow investigation into all police misconduct to disclose under the Maryland Public Information Act. We want the information. To create statutory limits on the use of force by law enforcement. And then this goes a little bit in depth. If you go and look at it, and I can share this information, and Tawanda, you can get it out to the masses. So I won't go into a lot of detail, but we want to also repeal the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. We often hear people talk about LEOBOR. Those are the specific rights as a law enforcement officer that they have. We need to eliminate the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. That is in that Bill of Rights is where I talked a little bit about officer has 10 days before they can be questioned after there is excessive or deadly force. We need to eliminate that. We need to hold officers accountable. We need to make sure that there is in fact transparency when these events happen. Number 4, give the people of Baltimore City the ability to govern the Baltimore City Police Department. And then lastly, you want to take law enforcement out of the schools for, building that school to prison pipeline that I talked about. So I would ask that the folks here in Maryland, if you can get connected with the Maryland Coalition for Justice and Police Accountability. Also, there are petitions going across the country. Yeah. And these petitions are for where people who have not received justice, did not receive their day in court, that these old cases that are out there, be reopened.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't just, it didn't just start with George Floyd. This has been going on for eons.
Yeah.
Right. And so we need to get these cases opened up. You need to get with your local DAs. And the number one, we need to vote. We need to vote. It is our responsibility that we get those people in there that are going to stand for the issues that are important to us. Not just on the election, the presidential election, but your local elections, your state elections. We, as people, we need to vote. Because if you don't vote, then you don't have a leg to stand on to say anything if you didn't vote. Lastly, I'm with the Coalition of Concerned Mothers organization. We have a website, what is COCMDMD.org is the website. You can find us under Coalition of Concerned Mothers on Facebook, and Lord knows I don't remember what the Twitter is, but we also have a Twitter page. And this organization, unfortunately, is comprised of mothers that have lost their children to police brutality, to community violence. And it was co-founded with Deshola Dawkins, whose son Timothy Dawkins was murdered by community violence. So any support you can give to us, to any mother, any family member, not just mothers, any family member across this country, because these are tough shoes to walk in. It's a very difficult journey. It's a hard journey because everybody can't do the things like Tawanda's doing, 362 weeks out here, standing strong for her brother. I mean, everybody can't do that. So where you can lend a hand, I want to talk, my husband used to always say, if everybody does a little bit, nobody has to do a lot. You know what your lane is, you do your piece. You can't be in every lane, but whatever that piece is that you can add and the value you can add to bringing the change that's needed to stop this corrupt system and this white supremacy, you know, and our, as I mentioned, corrupt justice system, and I was out in there because I could go on and on and on. Do your part. Silence is consent to the status quo. Do my son a favor. He says it takes a village. I ask that you become a part of the village, a village for change, the right side of change. Thank you.
Thank you, sis.
Yes, thank both of y'all. And before I bring up my sister Nicole to share with us about her beautiful daughter that she lost, and as well as her as her father-in-law. I just want to thank you ladies so much because y'all encourage me. Y'all like the strongest people I know. When I see any mother fighting for their children, it's just on a whole new level. And I just love you guys so much. Like, I couldn't imagine y'all came up with it like to lose my brother, because losing my brother was just more than losing my brother. It was like me losing my mom all over again, my father, like he was everything. They don't realize what they took from me. Like bringing him back on the streets was like bringing my mother out of the ground again. And when they took him, they put him back on top of my mother. So it's heartbreaking, but I just want to thank y'all. And I thank Marianne, because I remember I met her I think it was at my brother's candlelight or in the necklace, but we done met up so much, even with Gina standing over there at Freddie Gray Mural and just different places. I would wish anybody into this club, like our sister just said, it's heartbreaking. We live with this pain every day, and then we gotta go to work and deal with foolishness, go back to society and deal with people being mean, and they have no idea. They have no idea the hell that's going on inside of our heads, hearts, and minds is just horrible. So I'm just gonna bring on my sister Nicole real quick. Mic check.
Mic check. I'm silencing mine.
Mic check.
Can I just for a minute say, if you all need anything, because I need to drive, I was supposed to have a hard stop at 8. I need to drop, but Tawanda, you know how to reach me. If there's anything I can do or any support I can provide, please let me know. And know that this fight that we're on is not just for Gary. This is much greater than Gary. As I mentioned, 21,000 in. It's bigger than Gary. So any support I can give to anyone, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for sharing.
Love you, Marianne.
Love you.
Good night, Marianne.
And real quick, Tawanda, because I'm going to silence myself. I'm not going to leave, but if anyone would like to do something, because I thought about what you said. You asked about the Cash App, and I forgot to mention that. But I would love to be able to get Evan. He wants a Nintendo Switch. or just something towards it. And my funds, I promised him. So if anyone wanted to contribute to that for Evan and his little boy, that would be great. My Cash App is $Gina N. My family calls me Nikki. No one knows me as Gina, but Best, BEST. So it's again $Gina N Best. And anything, I'm halfway there for Evan, but that's what he's asked. He just had his birthday on the 21st.
Yeah.
So he's 9 years old now. But I just wanted to, and thank you. I want to hear the sister, what happened to her loved one. But thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm definitely getting ready to send you something because I want to do something for my baby. That was the cutest video. When I saw that video of you and the grandbaby, that made my day. Like that day, I was having a heartbreaking day. I was crying all over the place, and then I jumped on Facebook and I saw you and your beautiful baby, and that just like made my whole day like complete. It made my whole week, so I can't wait to share. And you know what? I'm gonna bring up my sister Nicole. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Hi everybody, this is Nicole again. Well, I'm Nicole Pettiford. I'm the wife of Marcus Pettiford, the daughter-in-law of Anthony Anderson, and the mother of Ajay Harrod. In 2012, September the 21st, they killed my father-in-law, the Baltimore City Police Department. He had a ruptured spleen, blunt force trauma to the head. They literally beat this man to death in front of his mother, his granddaughter, his daughters, and everything. It was terrible. My husband was at work at the time, so he didn't get the news about what happened until later on that evening after everything had been done. And his mother, which is deceased now, she asked him, "What were you doing? You know, what are you doing to my son?" And they was like, "Bitch, move back, because you gonna be next." And you say this to an elderly woman who's trying to figure out, why are you beating and banging on her child? Why would you want to do something like that? They told this woman to her face, they turned around and told her, "Bitch, back up, or you gonna be next."
Say what?
I was sick and twisted in your mind. Do you have to be to say that to somebody? And y'all supposed to be law enforcement. Y'all supposed to protect and serve, but you protect and serve yourselves. That's it. I used to feel like the police was everything, that I could go to them and ask them directions, or if someone was being harmed, I could get help for them. I would rather take my chances with the criminals, because at least I know what you coming for. Y'all, I don't know.
Right.
I have no clue. I could come to you and be like, officer, this is going on, and I'll be the one to end up dead. At least if the murderer coming to me, I know what your intentions are. You're going to kill me. So I can already prepare myself for what's about to go down.
Right.
And the sad thing to say, 2 weeks after that, my daughter was murdered.
Oh.
So I'm on both sides of the fence, because my daughter was murdered in the streets. But the police still had something to do with that. You didn't directly kill her, but you were the reason why she died. They questioned my daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, about a murder that she had nothing to do with. 9 times out of 10, when a person kills somebody, they're going to send the person back to make sure that person is dead. They saw my daughter getting in a police car, going down to be questioning, thought she knew something, and they took my child away from me. They put a bullet in her head. 16 years old. Exactly. I think it was, I guess you can say, roughly 2 weeks after my father-in-law was murdered. Because she got killed on October the 7th, and my father-in-law, I'm sorry, I keep saying my stepfather. My father-in-law was killed September the 21st of both 2012. Nobody can, unless you've been through it, nobody can imagine the level of pain that I went through.
No.
And then on top of that, I had to go back and forth to court on a different situation that had nothing to do with that. And they had the audacity to ask me, "Why do you have pictures of a dead child in your phone?"
Oh my God.
That was so insensitive, but that's the only thing that I had left of my baby. And you think that I'm going to erase her completely? I've already had to erase her from my physical being of seeing her every day. So now you want me to erase her from my archives, period?
No.
My daughter was not perfect. She did her thing. She ran around with the wrong crops, and my baby, we got into it. We got into a horrible argument, and I cut her off. I said, I just can't deal with you because you're too disrespectful. So she called me and said, Ma, I just want to tell you, I said, Smiley, because I used to call her Smiley. I said, Smiley, I don't have nothing to say to you. So the end of that week, she got her girlfriend to call me. She said, Miss Nicole, Smiley don't have nowhere to go. She don't have no coat or nothing. At first, I was like, so, I don't care whatever, being cold-hearted. But for some reason, God softened my heart, and I talked to my baby, and she told me, she said, Ma, I'm sorry. I love you. She said, I want to go back to school, and I need you to help me get my Maryland State ID. I said, Smiley, I love you too. I said, but if you ever disrespect me like that again, I'm going to cut you off, and I'm not going to deal with you no more. She said, Mommy, I love you. I said, I love you too. That was Friday. They killed my daughter that Sunday.
Oh
and I just
God.
thank God that I got a chance to tell her that I love her again before they took her from.
Yes.
That's how I know God is good, because He let me say goodbye. And we didn't die with malice. She didn't die with malice. We had malice in our hearts for each other after she left. I got to say, I love you. She got to say, I love you. She got to apologize. And then she went on home to glory. And my daughter could sing. Oh my God. My voice can't hold a candle to my daughter. But you know what? I do what I do. I sing how I sing for my baby, because I am going to allow her to shine any kind of way that I can, no matter what. Ajay Harad, aka Smiley, will live on as long as I have breath in my body.
Come on,
and I just thank God for sending people like y'all my way to be able to help me with the strength and the courage and the know-how and the go-ahead to try to change things, to try to be a part of something. I'm at first, and see, people don't understand that, and I ask people this, and I've asked them this a lot. I said, what is a graveyard? And they said, well, it's where you put dead people and stuff. I said, no, a graveyard is a bunch of untold stories, because you don't know how many kings and queens and activists and singers and dancers and actresses and stuff that are in those graveyards, and nobody knows their stories. Nobody remembers their names, because they didn't have people like us to stand up for them, to continue on with their legacies after they were gone. So a graveyard is not where you put dead people at. A graveyard is where you leave people's legacies that nobody has talked about and nobody knows about. I don't want that to happen to any more of my people. I don't care if you're purple or polka dots. If you have a story, if you have a purpose, if there is something that God has put you here for to do, everybody needs to know about it. Everybody. No matter what. I don't care about the situation, because when I leave this world, because I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. But when I leave, everybody's going to know who Nicole Pettiford was. And everybody is going to remember my name. Whether it's for a good thing or whether they feel as though it was a bad thing, my name will never die. And when you can't kill my name, you can't kill me. As long as my name lives on, I will always live. Always remember that. Don't let them kill your people's names. Don't let them put your people in the ground again. Let them live. Say their names. Keep their names out there. Keep it going over and over and over again. Every name that you can think of that has been by anybody out here, you keep them names strong and loud, and you keep letting them roar, because they cannot kill you unless they kill your name.
Come on. The name ain't gonna die.
No.
The name is not gonna die. Come on. Oh my God.
All of you. I love y'all are my sisters and brothers from other mothers. But you know what? It is what it is. And unfortunately, my phone is dying. So that's the only reason why I have to leave y'all. But trust and believe, next Wednesday I will be back. Remember this face. Nicole Pettiford is here to stay forever.
Say that.
Sis, how can we help you real quick before your phone dies? Anything you can do to support?
Wow.
What did you say?
How can we help you, sis? Anything we can do to support before your phone dies?
Well, the only thing that really can happen is that I really want to go to Minneapolis to help with the protests and stuff, but me and my husband, it's just so bad with, the pandemic. He's not working and we can't afford it. That's the thing. We can't afford to get there. If it's a way that somebody can help us get there, I'm there with bells on, bad back, bad feet, can't breathe, hand nappy.
Come on.
Hungry. I'll be there.
Nicole, are you talking about the one this weekend?
Yes. That's this weekend coming.
Yeah, it's this weekend.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we supposed to be going this weekend. They supposed to be the guy, Mel, I'm sorry, it's so much going on. But Brock spoke to your husband earlier. They supposed to be taking care of plane tickets. But do you have like any information that you can share as well?
Do I have what kind of information?
PayPal, any way that we can donate something.
My husband has all that stuff. I am not good with technology. He has PayPal and all that. I don't know how to do any of it. I'm just learning how to get on here on the Zoom and stuff. I feel like a big girl today because I learned something new.
All right, well, look, what I'm going to do is I'm going to solicit people just in case Brock but he promised, he gave me his word that he was going to book you and your husband. So I'm going to check with him to make sure that happens. And if he don't, anybody got air miles, whatever, please donate y'all something. Like, thank God that I'm going because somebody did that for me. I love the Halifax. They saved my life. They put me out there. They put me and my baby on the plane. Before
that's right.
Definitely going get you there, plane. Don't even worry about Brock's going to. I'm gonna call Brock as soon as we finish this and make sure you and your husband on that plane, and they already got your hotel covered, so that's covered.
Okay.
So thank you so
I
much.
Love you too. I love all of y'all.
I'm lifting your heart.
But I never knew the details. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a good evening, everybody.
You have a better one.
I'll donate something
Go.
All right. Bye.
Mike, check.
Mike, check. Twanda.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to donate something to her too.
Oh, okay.
And to the other sister.
Did you
actually, I want to say something.
Yeah. So here's Gina Cash app, and if I get something from Miss Patterford, I'll let you know. I'm gonna get her husband to send me this. But
Gina, text it to me.
Okay.
I need you to text me that, and I'll send it today. I just need all three of them. The lady, was it three of them? Yeah, all three.
Because Marianne didn't want to. She didn't ask for any donations. She just was saying I'm gonna get on that
Yeah, just text me the information.
Okay, cool. I
definitely appreciate it because anything for little Evan, it warms my heart. I mean, he comes first, and it's India's baby, So thank you for your kindness and your generosity. Definitely appreciate it.
Yes, because I mean, I know what it feels like. I'm Angel Seela from Baltimore, Maryland. I can imagine. I mean, just listening to these stories alone today, it really hit home for me because I just know what grief is because I was a victim of a violent crime myself back in 2012, being a rape victim. And I honestly believe and truly believe that I was actually set up and the way they handled my case and got the guy off after he was supposed to be spending 5 years. He spent less than 2 years. They gave him 18 years, all suspended with a 5, and he actually did less than 2. Came back out and stalked me with a mask on, and Judge Timothy Dory literally got this guy off where he violated again, and Marilyn Mosby, all of them were involved in it because they actually banned me. Marilyn Mosby herself banned me from coming down at her office when I was homeless. They left me and my son homeless in the street, did all kinds of things to me and my family. And I mean, my heart really goes out to Tawanda, all of y'all. I mean, I every day I live, I can't say I don't live in fear, because I do. You know, I live in fear every day, being a Christian, being a faith-believing Christian. And I live in fear because I have a 26-year-old son that I have to take everywhere with me, or he goes everywhere with me. And I said, if they gotta kill him, they gotta kill me. If they kill me, they gotta kill me. The whole thing is that I just don't understand how the system, these people that are in leadership, can not be as sensitive. It's like they don't have a heart to be sensitive to people who literally grieve. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm sitting here inwardly crying. I sometimes it's hard for me to even get on here, because mentally that's torture. You know what I'm saying? Just to hear your story, that's torture. Just to see how they treat victims, just to see that they don't give a rip. And I understand when people got to curse, got to say what you got to say, mean what you mean, don't hold back. You know, I just told someone the other day, I said, what if somebody would touch and put their hand and kill my son? I hate to tell you, this whole city is going to be burned down. God forgive me, but I'm a Christian. But I'm going to tell you this much. It is what it is. You know, you can't come around and think that you can put a gun or beat the hell out of somebody's child and not have a conscience. That means you're a demon living. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm here for, to kill every devil that try to step up to my people. I can't stand to hear when women like you are beautiful women. I'm talking about women that got a lot of intelligence, smart as a whip. You all are beautiful people. The thing is that these sucker police officers, the system, Marilyn Mosby, the judges, all of them are in this thing together. This is a pandemic. This is not a pandemic. This is a pandemic. They planned this matter. They planned these issues to cause trauma, to bring it to us as a people of color. So, you know, I just want to encourage you all, please, you know, please keep being strong, keep standing strong, keep speaking up. Whatever time I can give to contribute and do whatever I can do. Y'all got my heart. I will do whatever I can. You want to make sure you send the Cash App. Make sure you send the Cash App, because I know what it means. I know what it means to stand up. Send their Cash App. Make sure you send it to me, and I'm going to do what I can do as much as I can do. And I'm telling you, I pray to God that you women, y'all will heal, that God will heal y'all inwardly, mentally, emotionally, financially, every area of your life. You can't bring your loved one back, but guess what? I'm here to stand with you. Be encouraged and keep your head up, and don't let no devil stop you from speaking up with your mouth. God bless you all.
Thank you, Queen. Thank you. Anybody else want to share for time's sake? I know we ran, so we normally kind of wrap up at 8. I don't even know what time it is, but do anybody else want to share real quick? And I always like cutting this off because I could go on all night, but I just respect folks' times and things like that. So do anybody else have anything quickly that we can share?
Yeah, I was going to give a little speech, but I'll forego that because of the lateness, but I do want to mention two things. One is that the number of people killed by police in the United States is about 1,100 every year, as Miriam was pointing out, 21,000 since her son was taken. And just in the last week of June, I have the names of 21 people that were killed by police, none of whom have we heard of. And I want to read those names. They don't have the most recent week. This is the last week of June. So keep in mind, 1,100 people a year equates to about 3 a day. This is the week, and 3 a day would be 21. It's exactly 21 people that were killed by police in the United States. So the people are Skylar Young, Robert Harris, Rashid Morman, Martin Sanchez Fregoso, Noel Sebastian, Benjamin Brooks, Aaron Keller, Michael Pelly, Aloysius Keaton, Leonardo Ibarra, Louis Lane, Bonnie Jo Figuera Ortiz, James Tober, John Parks, Brittany Tatrobe, Nick Costolas, Wade Meisberger, Kevin Lee Catlett, and 3 more whose names were withheld by the police. And and that's 1 week. 1 week. The other thing I want to mention is that next week after West Wednesday, we're going to have the challenge discussion group, and we're going to be talking about, can we win the defund police? Can we win to abolish police? Or do we have to abolish the system of capitalism to make those changes? And that'll be the discussion topic. That's it for tonight, and I feel like others have said that the stories tonight very painful to hear, and I'm so sorry that you've had that experience.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Ben. And if everyone just could say their names again, just so I can hold that sacred space, please, before we go. The couple here, and then.
My name is Benjamin.
I'm Hillary, and this is Dan.
Kellery and Dan.
Yep, Hillary and Dan, yeah.
My name is Bill.
Bill.
Wanda sometimes calls me Uncle Bill.
That's Uncle Bill and Bill and Ben. And
my name is Brian.
And Brian. Thank you all and then the sister as well.
Angel Sila.
Thank you all for, we're holding sacred space. I'm going to go and kind of decompress. Evan has been asking for his macaroni and cheese. Children autism spectrum need that structure, so he can have macaroni and cheese every day. But I know that I'm doing this for India, and I want to thank you all for, again, remembering my baby. And say her name, please, because I could name the women. But thank you just for being conscientious enough to even lend your help and support to Wanda, yes. And stay in the fight with us, because we cannot do it on our own. No. We can't. We need that help. We need the support. We need it all. And we are all fighting this evil. I'm trying to find the words, but you all know what I mean. But thank you.
Empire.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We love you, and we definitely will be and get having this Nintendo game. Yes.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I've been, but it's all for the baby, because again, when he smiles, I'm able to smile. So I see so much of India in him. Thank you.
Thank you. So Brian, do you have the forum link that you read weekly?
Yeah, I have that.
Okay.
I have that, and I almost hate to add any more pain to this what we've heard so far today, but we've sort of made this a part of what we do here, because it's all violence. It all comes from the society of violence that we live in, and certainly police violence is the cutting edge of that, and the history of that goes back to well before this country existed, but certainly the founding of this country and before. And so I want to just talk about one thing really quick before I read this week's list of victims. This Sunday at 7:30, starting 7:30 for people who want to show up and be fed and eat, and then at 8 we're going to show a movie. But a friend of mine and I do what's called Dinner and a Movie with Brian and Shorty, and we are doing it this Sunday at the historic jail building in Towson, Maryland here. And I really implore everyone to come out, because the reason that we're going to be in that place in that time is that is the 135th anniversary of lynching of a 17-year-old boy named George Cooper on that site. And so I want there's no marker, there's no historical societies doing anything about it, but I just really feel that we always hear about truth and reconciliation. Well, truth comes first, and the truth is that we do not deal with the real history, the real story of white supremacy in this country. And so I want to start to do that by memorializing this event in this place at this time. And you know, I don't have any bronze, I don't have any granite, so I'm gonna do what I have. I have a projector, I have a movie, I have movie 13th that'll be shown on the wall of the jail, and you know, that's what I can do. And I want as many people there as possible to bear witness to what happened in that place at that time. So that this Sunday, 7:30. And you know, put that on all your social media. Tell everyone you can. Bring a friend. So, and with that, I'm gonna move on to the victims this week here in Baltimore. And you know, I ask you all to mic check their names back, just so that we can have their memories for one moment more. Oh, there's another person I want to remember before I start on the list. A man whose name we still don't know, who was in mental crisis, was shot in the basement of his own home by Baltimore police last week, and his name has not been released. But 2 officers came into his house because he was in a relative let him into the house because he was in mental crisis. They came down in the basement and shot him. And that's all we know. He was in critical condition, but he appears to have stabilized. So just hold that in your if you hold people in prayer, if you keep whatever you do to keep those people close to you, please do that for him. So this week, Shauna Lloyd, 35.
Shauna Lloyd, 35.
Ronald Laws, 54.
Ronald Laws, 54.
Douglas Parson, 34.
Douglas Parson, 34.
Douglas Parson, 34.
Marquis Jackson, 43.
Marquis Jackson, 43.
Osmar Holland, 32.
Osmar Holland, 32.
Eric Kirk, 35.
Eric Kirk, 35.
Eric Kirk, 35.
Paul Beller, 67.
Paul Beller, 67.
67.
Thank you.
So I do have a quick update. They did release the name of that guy who was shot by the Baltimore police. He is still in critical condition as far as I know, but his name is Ricky Walker Jr. Ricky Walker Jr. And the police are refusing to release their body cam footage of the incident. So he is still alive. So if you were a praying type, or if you are the one to just lift up good thoughts, definitely keep him in mind tonight, because he is still in the hospital.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do anybody else want to share real fast before we wrap up? Because we definitely about to wrap up.
Gina, it was very good to meet you.
As well, thank you all again for listening. I can tell that this is a robust conversation that needs to be continued in every household in the United States, every single household. That having grown up in Des Moines, Iowa, I would always be the only black little girl, and so I was socialized as the only, so it's different. And then to grow and have my daughter killed by the very thing is the worst. So again, and thank you all, and it won't be the last time we all talk, because Tawana's going to give me all the information, so I will connect and reach out to each one of you, social media, Twitter, however, just so that we can stay connected. Thank you all for your space and your time and your energy. Thank you.
And guys, you can donate to the baby, because we definitely want to see that baby. That's the least we can do. Even if it's $2, $1, any amount is fine and appreciated.
is
Anything, appreciate it. It is, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give the Cash App information again. It's $GINANBEST. So yeah, so let's send the baby something. Let's get him his game. Let's make his beautiful. She don't even look like somebody's grandmother, but let's make her
I have
smile.
8 grandbabies.
Yes.
8 of them.
Well, she smiles as well. So yeah, so I just want to thank everybody. Like, thank you, Gina. I shake to you your strength. Like, I remember, and I'm just gonna quickly wrap it up. But I remember when Gina did a video crying. I still remember that video. Like, it just touched my heart every which way. And I think it went viral. It was just so like powerful. Anybody like that seen that video, like it was people that was sending me that in my inbox that lived way across seas, and I'm like, I know her, that's my beautiful queen sister, and they was like, wow, you know. So it was just, even though it's heartbreaking, but a human being that didn't shed a tear after watching you on that video, they're not human. That's just all I gotta say about it. And just like connecting the dots and just like figuring back real quick, just like it's just really sad what's going on, but we definitely need real change. And to me, I'm past reform, I'm past all that foolishness. Like when I started off in this 7 years ago, I was with all for reform, all for the body cam, anything. I remember my aunt cried when she seen me get on my knees, and this before kneeling was cute or anything, when I actually got on my knees crying to humans, begging them MFers for justice down at City Hall. I didn't do it because I thought it was cute. It was just something that just had me so compelled for them to feel the pain that I was going through. And it's sad that I lost one of my uncles that was there. He was crying. My Uncle Dynamite, Clifton Anderson, may he rest in peace. And just like, and I hope Anthony Anderson, my mom, rest in peace. We having our loved ones die with no justice or peace for their loved ones. That is sick. We need to do something ASAP. We need to demolish this whole damn system. It's guilty as hell. So I'm just gonna end real quick. I love you guys, but never ever stop loving on people. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything. If you have to send somebody completely over the edge just by saying one word, one act of love sends encourage a person throughout the whole day, this atmosphere. So live to love, love to live. I love you all. I'm gonna take you out with my cousin's video that he made, and it was depicting everything what happened to my brother Tyrone West, and we'll be coming up on his commemoration on the 18th. We want to see everybody at 7 o'clock. You all can come. Please join us in Kenton or Talisway running for justice. Have something beautiful planned for us. Shout out to Gretchen. Shout out to everybody, and I love you all. Ben, Hillary, Mickey wanted to share something. Is Mickey around real quick? Everybody got him.
I'm right here.
Go for it, Mickey.
Hi everyone. I'm Mickey. I'm Dan and Hillary's oldest son.
We can't see you, by the way. It's super dark.
The past couple of weeks, me and my sister Eva, who I'm sure is watching from home in Philly tonight, have been really proactive in building up the social media presence of the West Wednesday Coalition. In the past week, I edited 4 videos from the prior protest that we had outside by the Columbus statue. And I would just encourage everyone to proactively check the pages and repost all of the videos and content that me and Eva are constantly trying to create for the page. And I think that's just an extension of what, ma'am, your name is Gina, yes?
Yes, Gina.
Gina, hi.
Hello,
It's an extension of what she was saying of continuing the conversation. The best way that we can reach the most people is through social media and sharing content from West Wednesday, so we can have as many eyes on such an important meeting that I thought tonight was. And I just, as always, want to thank Tawanda for organizing this incredibly important space that we have all been blessed to be able to even yeah, so I just, if you can be as proactive as possible as checking, it's at West Wednesday on Twitter and on Instagram, and it's all coming through the hashtag Justice for Tyrone West page on Facebook. So whatever social media that you are proactive on, if you can share all of the things that we post, and there will be some unbelievable videos hopefully from this week as well coming up soon.
Okay. And thank you again, Mickey, for sharing it. And thank you for making all the wonderful
video clips of West Winds, and I'm quite sure, Gina, you're gonna be on one of them clips. Well,
Gina, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have at least 6 to 10 fiscal year.
You can't hide. We charge you with genocide.
Louise, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Yeah. So again, I just want to thank everyone. Ben, thank you for sharing this on every social media and just being the man behind the wheels. Thank you, Uncle Bill, for sharing. I love the Hellerback family. I can't thank y'all enough. Thank you for sending me and my daughter off. We're going to be where George Floyd unfortunately lost his life at. I don't take no joy or pride in doing that and connecting with like families in pain, but it's important because our demands will be heard. So I just want to thank everybody for any act of kindness. So I just want to thank y'all again. And so as we take you out with this video, and as you see, like, you will see the old mayor, you know, that was at the time. You will see Greg Bernstein that disrespected my family. These were people that we were really chasing around. When my cousin says that I felt my brother's pain when he died, like literally my whole body and world just shifted. And when I got spiritually connected and I knew my damn brother was dead before we got that phone call, I was turned up calling my whole entire family. No one believed me until they saw a green Mercedes-Benz on the side of the road with my dear brother's body on. It was horrible, but that showed you the spiritual connection. They could never kill that. We still connected to this day. And I hope all the killer cops that murdered India, all the killer cops that murdered Anthony Anderson, all the killer cops that murdered any of our loved ones, and all the killers that murdered anyone in our community, I hope you all burn in hell. I don't have forgiveness. God, that's right. I agree with you. I feel the same way. I'm not going to do it because I just said God. So I'm going to end it, I know, because I want to end it in a loving way. So live tonight, love today, and then with the video. Thank you.
Mic check, mic check. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody and play this video.
No pity, my message to the Citizens Committee, who the biggest lawbreakers in the city. Full of corrupt politicians, red tape, roadblocks, criminals, no spots. What about these road counts? Pity, my message to the Citizens Committee, who the biggest lawbreakers in the city. Full of corrupt politicians, red tape, roadblocks, criminals, no spots. What about these road counts? They bust them on the head with closed fists and hard kicks. A bunch of night bitches trying to end this life quick. The kicks turn to stomps. They maced them and tased them, dragged them out the car by his friend. Plus they dazed them, killing them, but telling us they should have got a ticket. Traffic stop, truck stop, specify which is it. With every single witness saying he never resisted. Imaginary balls and ankle socks, must have missed it. Cardiac arrhythmia, dehydration. We even heard about positional asphyxiation. The bruises and the scarring, the suffering and pain. 30 minutes past before the ambulance came. I found it all insane. The beating killed for sport. It took 5 months to get the autopsy report. The coroner, the cops, and the fucking state's attorney knew my cousin was dead before they put him on the gurney. No pity. My message to the Citizens Committee, who's the biggest lawbreakers in the city. Full of corrupt politicians, red tape, roadblocks, criminals, no spots. What about these road counts? Pity. My message to the Citizens Committee, who's the biggest lawbreakers in the city. Full of corrupt politicians, red tape, roadblocks, criminals, no spots. What about these road counts? Deceiving the public is something closer to impossible. Only autopsy, but we know it wasn't logical. Highly improbable, undetermined manner. I like the way you doctored up the codes across the scanner. Your Sydney 13 sounded staged and unfinished. Your life was being threatened, not a single fucking blemish on any of the officers involved in the murder of Tyrone West. Man, that shit is unheard of. Let's go a step further. Examine all the evidence. 10 lying cops against the truth of all the residents. Cell phone footage, live interviews. I'm extra disappointed in the puppets from the news. Afraid to dig deeper, their information shoddy. 5 whole days until my family saw his body. No statement from the cops, but they spoke with their attorney. They know they killed my cousin when they put him on the gurney. No pity. My message to the Citizens Committee, who's the biggest lawbreakers in the city. Full of corrupt politicians, red tape, roadblocks, criminals, no spots. What about these road lawbreakers in the city. Full of corrupt politicians, red tape, roadblocks, criminals, no spots. What about these road They didn't notify my family, we saw it on the news. The one that saw a green Mercedes Benz and got confused. They talking about a man dying in police restraint. She saw her tag numbers and it caused her to faint. That can't be my brother Ty, I was just with him. Not even 30 minutes before he became a victim. She had a funny feeling, kinda like a sixth sense. Her back started aching, her muscles got tense. She couldn't understand all the pain she was going through. Like they ripped the soul out of his body, he was showing you everything that happened to him, transmigration. He made you feel his pain before his final destination. They took away his father, cousin, grandson, and brother, uncle and nephew, but I feel sorry for my mother, cause she became his mom when my aunt passed away. We're stronger as a family, but she cries every day. No pity. My message to the Citizens Committee, who's the biggest lawbreakers in the city. Full of corrupt politicians, red tape, roadblocks, criminals, no spots. What about these road cops? Throw up your hands like you're under arrest. Hell nah. Throw up your fists like you want protest.